What's happening, guys? So the six-pack Charger has been revealed, and I gotta tell you guys, I am extremely conflicted with this car. Let me tell you where the positives are first. Let's start off on a good note. I love the idea about an inline six twin turbo all-wheel drive vehicle. It really does pull at the heartstrings of a Cold War kid's background. And we all remember Dodge as being that quirky underdog that you had four cylinders, four-cylinder turbos, six-cylinder turbos in some cases that were hanging with the V8s. And that was all really cool back then, but all that went away. And well, this is the first time that an American manufacturer has really gone in and made these types of cars in recent memory. So for somebody that has an open mind and is maybe of a certain age and has been looking forward to a car like this to hit the streets, this is an amazing opportunity. And when you couple that with the idea that the platform that it's coming in is presumably lighter, maybe even significantly lighter than the outgoing platform that it's replacing, that all adds up to a pretty powerful combination with that new HO variant, the 550 horsepower six-pack, being a 10-second car right out of the box, and you can do that kind of number on the street as well. And the idea here is that it's got 550 horsepower, so when you run into those pesky Mustangs on the highway, well, you can dispatch with those guys as well. Hopefully. I mean, we all know how the Coyote runs on the freeway, but with the idea that you've got an all-around, extremely good, do-everything type of a car that will show numbers on the street as well as on a track, what's not to love? Well, to answer that is to say a V8 not being in the car is one thing. Most folks nowadays, you only talk about power numbers, but for many folks out there, it's V8 or nothing, and it's the soundtrack that they're gonna miss. These are folks that will tell you that meat is meat, but I gotta have some sizzle with my steak. They want the theater, they want the show, and I get that. I've recently purchased a truck specifically for the fact that it had a V8 and wasn't going to be an inline six. But maybe that's not the only bad thing that we need to look at, or at least a jeer, if you will. Bad's an overterm, but well, let's dive into this. It's the styling of the thing. Guys, look, I haven't seen one in person, but the issue that I have is, well, it looks like a 68 Charger, kind of a cartoonish version of one, so to speak, from about the rear quarter back. And that's not necessarily a good thing for a lot of guys. I mean, we're talking about a car that at this stage of the game is of the era of grandparents, great-grandparents. I mean, to go any further back, we would have this car looking like an old horse and buggy. You can't go back any more generations at this point and still keep trying to drag up nostalgia. We're running out of people that were even around for the nostalgia to really land for. And so because of that, I would have liked for that car to have its own identity. And it really doesn't. The way it just keeps hearkening back to the good old days of the Hemi, even though there's no Hemi to go into this car. But even if it did, would you still want the V8 Rumble? What if it were a different type of a V8? You know, we were told at one point, and this is going back about 5 years, that Dodge was maybe going to be looking to reduce the displacement, have a dual overhead cam V8, and that would be, in essence, the Mopar Coyote, for lack of a better way to describe the thing. Now, all that got scrapped, and of course, the Hellcats and all of our favorite Gen 3 Hemi variants just kept on trucking, but the idea was that the rumor mill at least was churning that out, and for a lot of folks, they would have been fine with that type of an engine being offered in this type of a platform. Because everything that we're talking about right now, as this car is being revealed, were things that we were talking about, say, 2-3 years ago when the rumor mill was just starting to build up some steam. So when I'm looking at this car, I'm looking at a car that is a bit contrived, if you will. It's trying to be something that it doesn't have to be. I would have preferred for this car to have a styling element that was more youthful and more of its own identity. Which brings me to the name of the thing. I don't need it to be named a Charger anymore. We've already kind of played this through. It's a legacy name. Again, just like the styling cues, what's in a name? Well, there's a lot in a name, and there's a lot that name will harken back to, and it doesn't need to. And in this case, realistically, if you're going to harken back to anything with the name and it's all-wheel drive, why wouldn't you bring back the Eagle name, the Talon, something like that? Something that will tie this car to the folks that will actually have some level of nostalgia for a vehicle that is powered in the way that this one is. Only time will tell how well this thing will do, but I've got to say that an all-wheel drive variant on the street will be a lot of fun. You can get all of the excitement out of that car all the time because, well, it's all-wheel drive. And it's my understanding that it's a selectable all-wheel drive, so if generic Hoonery is on the menu, then you've got that to play with too, but ain't nothing sweeter than a four-wheel drive donut, right? But in all seriousness, this thing is going to be fast, and it's going to be fast on a level that the old Scat Pack couldn't be because it didn't have enough power and had too much weight. And it'll be fast in a way that the old Hellcat variants couldn't be because, well, they had all the power but none of the traction, especially from a dig. The only place those cars ever did well was on a prepared surface, the drag strip. But in this case, now you've got a smaller car. Arguably that helps you, less weight, maybe a bit more aerodynamic, and the thing does better on the highway. Roll racing comes back into mind, and well, as you guys know, most of the racing on the street takes place on the highway, and well, with 540 horsepower, maybe it will dispatch a couple of those pesky Mustangs, those sweet sounding V8 powered Mustangs that you're going to have to be going up against. If you're from the future, how's the car doing against those Mustangs? Because we in the past would like to know what the future holds. And that's another thing. For anybody that has any hopes that this car is going to have some type of a V8 variant, well, I wouldn't hold your breath. Because at the way things are going right now, power to weight and everything else, internal strife that you may find through Stellantis, I think this is the best you can hope for. So complaining about a V8 not being in the car, that's not going to do you any good. Let's find out what this thing is really capable of. Once the tuning software has cracked the code on this latest operating system, there's a lot to look forward to. And by the way, I get it, the sizzle and the steak thing, but I'll tell you this, guys, nobody ever complains about what a GTR sounds like at Texas 2K. Man, don't complain about the Supras either. With that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Post up, let me know, and that's a wrap.